Hello and welcome. My name's Greg, and we're going to discuss, predominantly, as you can tell by the title, the levelling up agenda that the government is rolling out. But we're also going to talk about a few other topics in between that relates to levelling up. So let's just get straight into it. Okay, so when we discuss levelling up, we really need to know what levelling up entails exactly. So what the government plans to do is they plan to what they call an investment into local areas to try and revitalise certain parts of the country that have been deprived, which I suppose the intention of this is to allow more businesses to invest in other areas outside of London, and they focus heavily on the northern parts of the country, which are less wealthy and more deprived than areas in the south of the country. But in reality, this is really done for votes. They're trying to take away votes from the Labour Party, those traditional red wall seats, by introducing spending plans in their local area. Now, the government has already planned to spend £4.8 billion on this agenda in hopes to revitalise certain areas. However, looking closely, I've done some research onto what these projects actually are going to be. So, in doing this research, there's one common denominator in most of these projects, and it's leisure centres. Leisure centres are... Sorry? These are leisure centres which are costing 14, 15, 16 million pounds per leisure centre to build. And the reason I am so perplexed by this is because I thought this is what private enterprise does. Why is the government providing us this service in these deprived areas? I mean, you would have thought some infrastructure, maybe, to help people get across from one side of the part of the city to the other. But randomly placing leisure centres across the country. Look, I'll show you an example right here. Okay, so in this example, Forest of Dean is going to receive over £20 million for a leisure centre and a social gathering building. Okay? Forest of Dean is literally, it's like in between, on the border of Wales, right by Gloucestershire. So what that means is, it's in the middle of nowhere, in a forest, a big massive national forest, and they're going to spend £9 million of which on a leisure centre there. How have they worked out that's going to be a good return on investment? Instead of putting one in some random national forest, why don't you consider doing it in Gloucestershire? If you want to do it somewhere, do it logical. And even still, this is something that the private sector should be doing, not the government. Why is the government financing things such as leisure centres? On the government website, it also states that these projects in the forest will help achieve net zero. However, how are people going to arrive there? They're not going to arrive by train. No, they're going to have to drive there in their petrol and diesel cars. It just makes no sense. The logic behind this is there's a reason why no private enterprise is willing to do this, because it's illogical. That's why when you have government just throw money at stuff, they don't really think about it. There's no cost benefit analysis. And guess what? They're also building with this money a new university. As if we don't have enough people going to university. No. Let's build another university so more people can go and waste away their money and waste away 3-4 years of their life when they could be doing an apprenticeship. This is why this is so illogical. They should take that money they're building that university for and put it into apprenticeships, which is going to provide real human capital. What I would like to know is, what kind of research did they do prior to announcing this that made them think, oh yeah, this would be a great idea. There's enough demand for this, people would love this, some leisure centre. I wonder what kind of focus groups they used to come to this conclusion. You want to know what research they most definitely did? Absolutely none. There's no way they did any primary or secondary research on the area surrounding the Forest of Dean to come to the analysis and come to the conclusion that we need a leisure centre and a random university right in the heart of the Forest of Dean. What data did they really consider to say, oh yeah, brilliant? I mean, just think about it. What are the particular things that a government should do to, if they want to grow certain regions and drive investment? What they should do is increase the ease of transportation / access through infrastructure. That's one thing. A second thing is making sure there's everything within a town. Access to things like this. For example, take the Apple Store. People won't want to drive 40 minutes just to get to the Apple Store and get something fixed on their iPhone. Okay, they're going to want something that's fairly local within a 20-minute drive, not on hours. So what they should be doing is providing some form of incentive for individuals and companies to invest in these regions. These incentives can vary, but one that comes to mind that's very good is a tax incentive through tax breaks. I mean, let's be honest, things such as Apple stores, there's less of them in the north, and that's why they say there's such a division between the north and south, because the south is far richer, and by providing things such as infrastructure and giving businesses a reason and giving businesses an incentive to invest in those areas is what we should be doing, is something that will actually work. Not building some useless university, which we need to bear in mind the fact that most people actually move away when they go to university. It's not as if a local university will drive loads of investment into a dead town, essentially. Building some dead-end university isn't going to really drive investment. You're better off building something that will form some sort of tourism around the area. In my opinion, that is something the government should be focusing on. Doing stuff in the northern parts that help drive tourism, because tourism is a big part of London. In America, they have massive cities such as New York, Los Angeles, Texas, Orlando, Florida. All these different places are not only tourist attractions, but they're also major cities and major economic drivers for the country. So if you want that in places such as Birmingham or Manchester, you need to focus on things that will actually help improve tourism in those areas. Why the government thinks this is a great idea, but the problem is right now is probably the worst time for government intervention and government spending, because we already have a massive national debt. It was different 50 years ago because we didn't have such a gigantic mammoth national debt to try and service. Okay, we currently got interest rates rising big time, and they're not going down anytime soon, and the cost to service that debt is going up dramatically. Therefore, we need to really consider cutting back. If you want to do infrastructure investment such as HS2, you're probably better off actually giving that project out to a private company. When government pays for stuff, it always ends up being more expensive than they originally think. The original budget is never met. It's always exceeded. Originally HS2 was going to cost us 20 billion, and now it's over 100 billion. This kind of stuff is always thought out, and there's always contingency plans in the private sector in this sort of event. What the government should have done is, if they wanted HS2, they should have done all of the procedures to purchase all the land, and then They should have sold that, bundled it together, sold it to a private company, in which if they think it's wise to do this investment, then let them do it, and they pay for all the actual real costs of construction. Ideally, you want to get like a billionaire such as Richard Branson on it for Virgin, make it Virgin HS2 or whatever, call it, and have him do it because he has the capital. Someone such as Richard Branson has the capital to be able to afford a project such as this. And guess what? It certainly wouldn't be costing over £100 billion for Richard Branson to be able to do this. Because you know why? Because the private sector is far better at negotiating deals for materials than the government. And a company such as Virgin already has the connections via suppliers of construction companies across the UK. And not only that, he already has much of the technology needed to be able to undertake such a project. So let's say the government, if you want HS2 to be successful and profitable, there's one thing I'd do, and I'd do it the same way with the rail network. I'd plaster ads all over the bloody place, okay? You put ads, a bit like billboard type ads, on the outside and on the inside. You make your profit not only through railway fares, but also the advertisement money. Stick a bunch of private ads in the same way they have Google ads, put it all over these trains, the HS2, that'll make them a hell of a lot of tax revenue. If I was the CEO of one of these train lines, I would make it my operational mission to simply advertise and splash adverts all on the inside and on the exterior. Imagine on that exterior, people are starting to get on the train, and you just display some on a screen on the outside, some form of ad, and people don't even. You could replace window seats with ads on them. My idea would actually provide a decent ROI for private enterprise to come in and say, well, hold on, look at this idea. This is something that we could actually consider and undertake. Whereas with the original idea of HS2, there's going to be no enterprise that's going to want to undertake that. It's tremendous mammoth a headache of HS2. Anyway, getting back to the levelling up agenda. If you want to get investment from private enterprise, which is what they should be doing, instead of just building things such as in one location they're going to be spending £5 million on building a cinema. What they should do is they should turn to Cineworld or whoever, right? Let's take Cineworld, and they should say to them, look, if you build a cinema in this specific location, and what we'll do is we will provide you with a tax break, meaning any profits made on this particular location for the next, let's say 24 or 36 months are tax-free. And not only that, this will give private companies the incentive to invest in these areas, because they'll see that the government are providing infrastructure in the local area, and they'll see, hold on, more people are going to be coming into this area and living here. There's a massive demand for our product, yet none of our other competitors are here fulfilling that demand. So we will have an advantage, and almost essentially like a monopoly in the local area. Therefore, you'll start to see companies flooding into these new areas. Building grand, expensive universities is not going to deliver upon that. We already have enough universities around the country. Dotting more won't add any real economic output. Here's another example. Blackpool Council is going to receive £40 million in order to deliver what they call a multiversity. It's going to cost a minimum of £40 million. That is what their current budget is. But as you know, with all government projects, it's never as much as the initial budget. It always exceeds that initial amount. The scary part about this is the fact that there were people, actual economists involved in this, and real business people that would have looked at these plans and said, you know what, this is going to be a great ROI because of XYZ. Now, I don't know who these people are, but whoever they are, they're just fools, to be honest, absolute fools. Because what we don't need is more students going to university and going to these doing these dead-end courses, racking up a bunch of student loan debts, and not even being able to pay it back. Most people would benefit more from on-the-skills type jobs, some sort of apprenticeship. That is what people really thrive on. Most jobs, you can learn the skills required through actual on-the-job training, not through a degree. That is the best way to grow and expand human capital, because that's what you need. There's so many people that don't have the skills, but in order for them to have the skills and be efficient as possible, what they need is on-the-job training. And I'm not talking about doing internships or anything like that for a few weeks. People should have full apprenticeships, and this should be more common. I don't get why it's not. Instead of building new universities for people to go through the education system, what they should do is build these almost like university type things, almost like a college, what college used to be, in which you would go there and you would learn on-the-job skills. You may not be able to, because not all firms are going to be able to offer apprenticeships, and apprenticeships are expensive for these firms. So what the government should be doing, instead of just putting people through academia that don't need to be put through academia, what they should do is have a system in which you take those people and you learn on-the-job skills. You put the theory into practical. Here's another one for you. There's going to be a leisure centre built in West Denton, and guess how much this leisure centre is going to cost? Somehow the government's worked out it's going to cost £20 million. £20 million. Now, I don't work in construction or anything, but I can certainly tell you it should not cost you £20 million to build a leisure centre or a leisure facility. That's why in this example, if you took a private company into it, a company already with suppliers and good relationships with all different types of different sectors, right? They would be able to provide better deals and outcomes for the cost to... You know what I feel the people of West Denton would be more appreciative of? If the potholes in the roads were fixed, okay? In building a better infrastructure, fixing so many different... if you want to level up, you don't just build big leisure centres. You want to take the existing infrastructure and fix it all. The roads, the trains, everything.